It was just another cloudy Tuesday morning at Roosevelt High, the kind of day where everything felt a little off. The hallways buzzed with the usual chatter, the smell of cafeteria pizza already drifting through the air, and the sound of sneakers squeaking on the floor echoed down the corridors. But for one student, the day was about to take a dark turn no one could have predicted. Tiana, a quiet and thoughtful 15-year-old girl, had slipped into the school bathroom during second period. She wasn't skipping class, just needed a moment. Lately, things at school hadn't felt right. Not with how the principal had been acting. He always had a smile, always said the right words, but something about him gave her chills. She'd been noticing small things, a lingering look, a weird comment that didn't sit right, the way he locked the teacher's lounge when he walked by. Tiana never told anyone, not even her closest friend, but that day, something happened in that bathroom that made her run. Her footsteps echoed down the hallway, fast and panicked. She didn't look back. Her breath came in sharp gasps as she turned a corner and saw the one adult she trusted in the entire building, Mr. Jenkins, the janitor. Everyone knew Mr. Jenkins. He'd been at Roosevelt High for over 20 years. He always had a kind word, a funny story, and a way of noticing when a kid was having a hard time. So when Tiana rushed into his supply closet, eyes wide and hands shaking, he dropped his mop and turned to her with concern. "What happened?" he asked, voice low but steady. Tiana couldn't get the words out at first. She just pointed back toward the bathroom, her voice catching in her throat. Mr. Jenkins didn't need to hear much more. He knew something was wrong, very wrong. And when he went to see for himself, what he discovered would not only shake the school to its core but reveal a side of the principal no one ever dared to imagine. But just as the scene fades from that hallway to the quiet bus stop across town, another story was beginning to unfold. 15-year-old Marcus sat on the number 42 city bus, his school bag on his lap and earbuds in. He was tired, working evenings to help his mom, keeping up with school, trying to stay out of trouble. The bus jerked to a stop, and a young pregnant woman stepped on. She looked uncomfortable, her hands resting on her lower back, eyes scanning for an open seat. Without thinking twice, Marcus stood up and offered her his spot. "You can sit here," he said politely, stepping aside. She smiled gratefully, lowering herself carefully onto the seat. "Thank you, sweetheart," she said, clearly touched by the gesture. A few riders noticed. Some smiled. Others kept scrolling through their phones. But what Marcus didn't expect was that a few minutes later, just before the woman got off the bus, she handed him a folded note. She didn't say anything, just pressed it into his palm, smiled once more, and stepped off into the city morning. He looked down at the note, confused. As the bus pulled away, he opened it and froze. Whatever was written inside that note would not only change his day. It would change his entire life. But before we get to that, let's go back to the school hallway, where Mr. Jenkins has just stepped inside the bathroom and discovered something that forces him to make a choice that could cost him everything, or save a student from something unimaginable. What did he see? What did the note say? And how are these two stories connected in a way no one saw coming? Stay with us. The truth is just beginning to unfold. Mr. Jenkins stood still for a moment just inside the girls' bathroom door. The scent of cheap air freshener mixed with something else, something heavier, something that didn't belong. He didn't see anyone at first, just a couple of stall doors slightly ajar, the hum of the flickering light above him, and a pink backpack lying on the floor near the sink. It was Tiana's. He recognized the patches she'd carefully sewn on herself. He moved cautiously, calling out, "Hello? Anybody in here?" His voice echoed slightly. No answer. Then his eyes landed on something by the far wall, a small mirror, cracked and crooked. And just beneath it, smeared faintly on the white tiles, was a streak of red. Not blood, at least not clearly, but something enough to send a wave of unease through him. He didn't want to assume the worst, but his gut told him something had gone wrong. Mr. Jenkins backed out of the bathroom slowly, pulling the door shut behind him. He glanced down the hall, making sure no students were nearby, and then walked straight to the small storage room where Tiana still sat on an overturned bucket, hugging her knees to her chest. "Tell me what happened," he said gently. Tiana looked up, her face pale and her eyes glassy. "He was in there," she whispered. "The principal." I thought he'd left already, but he was hiding in there. Mr. Jenkins blinked. Hiding? She nodded. I was washing my hands. I heard the stall creak open. I thought I was alone. Then I saw his shoes. I know it was him. And he said my name like he'd been waiting. A cold chill passed through Mr. Jenkins's chest. Tiana didn't need to explain more. The look in her eyes said enough. But he also knew the risks. It wasn't the first time a student had said something strange about Principal Dorsey. Whispers had floated through the school for years, comments that were dismissed, concerns that got buried. Dorsey had friends in high places. People didn't question him. But this time, Mr. Jenkins knew he couldn't ignore it. Meanwhile, across town, Marcus sat on the back of the city bus, still staring at the folded note in his hand. The words on it were neat, almost too perfect, like they had been written with careful intention. You don't know me, but I know you. You helped me once without knowing. And now it's time I helped you. Go to the corner of 5th and Clay tomorrow at noon. Come alone. Everything will change. He read the words again, trying to make sense of them. Who was she? How could she possibly know him? And what did she mean by everything will change? The woman hadn't looked familiar, but there had been something about her expression, like she knew more than she let on. Marcus folded the note and tucked it deep into his jacket pocket. The rest of the ride passed in a blur. When he got off the bus and walked toward his apartment complex, his head was spinning. Between work, homework, and helping take care of his little sister, he didn't exactly have time for riddles. But something about the note wouldn't leave him alone. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was hope. Or maybe, deep down, he wanted to believe that something good could finally happen to him. Back at Roosevelt High, things were getting tense. Mr. Jenkins escorted Tiana to the nurse's office, making sure she was safe and away from any attention. He told the nurse she felt sick, nothing more. Then he stepped outside and called the one person he trusted to listen, Ms. Ramirez, the history teacher. She'd been suspicious of Dorsey too, and she'd once confided in Mr. Jenkins that she'd seen him erase camera footage from the main hallway, but she hadn't had proof. When she picked up the phone, Mr. Jenkins didn't waste time. I need your help, he said. Something happened with Tiana. And I think it's time we finally expose him. There was a pause on the line. You sure? I saw her face, he said. I'm sure. Ms. Ramirez agreed to meet him after school. They didn't know yet what they'd do or how to collect enough evidence, but they both knew one thing: if Dorsey had crossed a line this time, they weren't going to let it slide. At home, Marcus sat at the kitchen table, pretending to focus on his math homework while his little sister colored beside him. His mom was still at her second job, and the house was quiet except for the sound of crayons scratching paper. He couldn't stop thinking about the note. Something about it made him feel watched, but not in a threatening way, in a way that felt bigger than anything he'd ever been part of. He looked at the clock. Almost 8 p.m. What was at the corner of 5th and Clay? That wasn't the best part of town. In fact, it was mostly old warehouses and abandoned shops. But now, it felt like a puzzle piece waiting to be picked up. The next morning, Mr. Jenkins showed up to school early. He had a plan: check the hallway cameras. He didn't have full access, but he'd cleaned the security room for years and knew which wires ran where. He wanted to see if any footage showed Dorsey entering or leaving the bathroom hallway during second period. If there was even a second of evidence, maybe, just maybe, it would be enough to start something. But when he reached the security room, the screen was already black. No feed. The cords were unplugged. Clean cut. Not yanked, sliced. Like someone knew what they were doing. He stared at the wires for a long moment, his heart sinking. Somebody had already tried to cover their tracks. And across the city, at 11:55 a.m., Marcus stood near the corner of 5th and Clay, his school bag slung over one shoulder. The street was mostly empty. An old laundromat sat closed on one side, and a broken-down payphone stood like a relic from another time. Just as he was about to walk away, thinking maybe it had all been a joke, a black car pulled up. Tinted windows. Silent. The back window rolled down slowly, and the same pregnant woman from the bus leaned out, now without her belly. It had been fake. She looked younger, sharper, like someone on a mission. "I'm glad you came," she said. "You're smarter than most." Marcus froze. "Who are you?" "We don't have time," she said. "You helped the right person at the right time. Now I need you to do something bigger. Something that could change more lives than just yours." Marcus took a step back. "I don't even know you." "You will," she said. "But first, you need to see what's really happening." The car door opened slightly, just enough for him to see a file folder sitting on the seat inside. His name was on the front. And beneath it, another name he hadn't expected. Principal Dorsey. The two stories, once separate, were starting to connect. And neither Marcus nor Tiana had any idea how deep things really went. The truth was coming, but not without a cost. Marcus stared at the file in the backseat of the car, unsure whether to reach for it or run. The woman didn't say anything else. She just gave him a look like she already knew what choice he'd make. Something about her calm, steady eyes made him feel like this moment had been planned long before he ever got on that bus. He took a deep breath, stepped closer, and grabbed the folder. The second he did, the door shut, the window rolled up, and the car pulled off, disappearing into the street like it had never been there. He stood on the sidewalk, heart pounding, flipping the file open. Inside were photos, grainy, some black and white, some in color. One showed Principal Dorsey standing with a man in a suit outside a government building. Another showed what looked like a document with parts blacked out. And then there was a picture of a classroom, except the people in the classroom weren't students. They were adults, sitting in rows, hooked up to some kind of machine. Marcus didn't understand any of it, but his name was written across one of the pages. Why would a school principal have his name in a file like this? And what did the woman mean by something bigger? Back at Roosevelt High, things were getting more tense by the hour. Mr. Jenkins tried to stay calm, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was watching him. That afternoon, he walked by the principal's office and noticed the door slightly open. He saw Principal Dorsey talking to someone in a suit. The man didn't work at the school, that was clear. Mr. Jenkins ducked behind the corner, just out of sight. "You said the cameras were taken care of," the man was saying. "They were. I checked myself," Dorsey replied. "And the girl? She's shaken, but quiet. I doubt she'll talk." "You better hope not. We can't have another incident, not after what happened at Lincoln High." The man closed the file in his hands, the same type of folder Marcus now had, and walked out. Mr. Jenkins pressed his back against the wall, heart racing. Another incident. What happened at Lincoln High? And how deep was this going? Ms. Ramirez met him in the teacher's lounge later, her face serious. "I've been doing some digging," she said. "There's something strange about Dorsey's records. He's transferred schools 5 times in 10 years, and each time, there were gaps. Missing paperwork, students who left suddenly, teachers who resigned mid-year." "Sounds like a pattern," Mr. Jenkins said. "It is," she nodded. "And every school had one thing in common: high numbers of low-income students, mostly Black and Latino kids. Every time something started to seem suspicious, boom, shut down, quieted, moved on. Like it was covered up." Mr. Jenkins looked away. "Tiana's not safe here." "No. None of them are." Meanwhile, Tiana sat alone in the nurse's office, her mind spinning. The nurse had been kind, gave her tea, told her to rest. But she couldn't. Her thoughts kept flashing back to that moment in the bathroom, the sound of her name being whispered, the shoes stepping out from behind the stall, and the way her body froze. She didn't even know how she got the strength to run. But she did. And now, she felt like the whole school was holding its breath around her, waiting for her to break. She wanted to tell someone. Her mom, maybe. But what if no one believed her? Dorsey had power. He knew how to act innocent, how to twist the truth. She'd seen it before with other students, girls who suddenly transferred, kids who got expelled for behavior problems right after they spoke up. She wasn't sure she was ready to face that storm alone. As she sat in silence, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She hesitated, then opened the message. "You don't have to be afraid. There are others. Trust Mr. Jenkins. And tell Marcus what you saw. He's part of this too." Her heart skipped. Who was sending these messages? How did they know Marcus? She barely knew him. He was in her English class, usually quiet, always polite. She remembered seeing him give up his seat on the bus the other day. It stuck with her, not because it was a big deal, but because small kindnesses were rare these days. But now, someone was linking them together. Across the city, Marcus sat in his room, his mind racing as he stared at the strange documents. He tried searching some of the names online, Project Echo, Site C47, Dorsey's full name, but most searches led to dead ends. One article stood out though. It was an old news piece about a school that abruptly shut down in another state. The headline read, "Lincoln High closure raises questions about student welfare." The article mentioned an unnamed administrative investigation, but nothing more. Lincoln High. The same school that Dorsey's mystery contact had mentioned. Then his phone buzzed. It was a message from a blocked number. "You found the file. Good. Don't show anyone yet. They're watching. But if you want answers, meet me at the old gym behind Roosevelt. Midnight." Marcus looked out the window. He didn't know if he should go, but something inside him whispered that if he didn't, he might never understand why his name was in that file, or why a stranger was willing to risk everything to warn him. That night, as the school lights dimmed and students headed home, the real story was just beginning. Dorsey sat in his office, scrolling through security footage, his jaw tight. He noticed something strange. The janitor had been near the bathroom that morning longer than usual. He rewound again. And again. Then his phone rang. "Problem?" the voice asked. "Maybe," Dorsey replied. "The girl's still quiet. But the janitor's sniffing around. And I think the Ramirez woman is involved too. We warned you. No more mistakes." Dorsey stood slowly, walking to the window and looking out at the empty halls. "Don't worry," he said. "If they dig too deep, they won't make it to the end of the week." But what he didn't know was that Tiana had made up her mind. She wouldn't stay silent. And Marcus, folder in hand, was already making his way back to the school, into the dark, into the unknown, where the truth waited in shadows. Neither of them knew what they were walking into. But someone had to uncover the secret hiding behind the walls of Roosevelt High. And time was running out. The wind was sharp that night, whistling through the broken bleachers outside the old gym behind Roosevelt High. The place had been closed for years, too many leaks, too much mold, but it still stood, forgotten by most, tucked behind the school like a memory no one wanted to deal with. Marcus pulled his hoodie tighter around him as he walked across the cracked pavement, the folder pressed tight under his arm. The message had said midnight. It was 2 minutes past. He looked around, unsure. The place felt abandoned, but not empty. A few of the windows were boarded up, but one near the back had been pried open just enough for someone to slip through. He climbed through it, dropping into darkness. His phone light barely reached more than a few feet ahead. The air was musty, the floor soft under his sneakers from years of water damage. Then, he heard it, footsteps. Slow. Careful. Not trying to sneak, but not trying to be found either. "Marcus," a voice called, soft but clear. He froze. "Yeah." A figure stepped out from behind the bleachers. It was the woman from the bus, the one who gave him the note. Except now, she didn't look like a stranger. She looked like someone who'd been running for a long time. No makeup. No disguise. Just tired eyes and something in her hands, another folder, thicker than the one Marcus had. "My name's Layla," she said. "I used to work for the district. I saw what they were doing." Who was doing? Dorsey. And people like him. It's bigger than this school. Bigger than one principal. But Roosevelt is where it's happening now. She handed him the folder. He opened it, and his stomach dropped. Inside were reports, student files, sealed documents marked confidential. But these weren't normal files. They listed behavior notes, emotional tracking, even biometric data. And every student in the files came from the same background, Black, Latino, or low income. Kids like Marcus. Kids like Tiana. The documents showed patterns, and worse, experiments. Not with chemicals or labs, but with stress, environment, pressure. A quiet, unofficial program that tested how students reacted under pressure. How much they could take before they cracked. They called it the Resilience Index, Layla said. They believed if they could measure how much a student could endure, they could use it to predict future behavior. For the justice system. For jobs. For the military. Marcus felt sick. That's messed up. They didn't care. The schools were the perfect testing ground. And Dorsey, he's been part of it since the beginning. But this time, he slipped. He got too comfortable. He thought no one was paying attention. But you were. And Tiana, she saw too much. Marcus stepped back. They're tracking students like test subjects. Yes, Layla said. And anyone who got too close, they silenced. Teachers were let go. Students were labeled troubled. Some just disappeared. Back at Roosevelt, Tiana sat in the corner of her bedroom, staring at the text message over and over. Trust Mr. Jenkins. Tell Marcus what you saw. She hadn't told Marcus anything yet. But she wanted to. Her fingers hovered over her phone. Then, suddenly, a knock at her window. She jumped, her heart racing. When she looked outside, she saw a familiar face, Mr. Jenkins. She let him in quietly, and he stepped inside with urgency in his eyes. We don't have much time, he said. Dorsey's on to me. I saw him meeting with someone again tonight. It's not just about this school, Tiana. It's bigger. And Marcus is already involved. Tiana nodded slowly. I think I'm ready to talk. They sat down, and for the first time, she told him everything. The way Dorsey had been watching her, how she saw him hiding in the bathroom, the way he said her name. She even remembered a moment, just before she ran, where she thought she saw his phone screen light up, showing a list of names. Her name was one of them. So was Marcus's. So were others. Mr. Jenkins's face went pale. If we can get that phone, we might have the last piece of proof. But getting it wouldn't be easy. Across town, Ms. Ramirez was digging through her old files. She'd saved screenshots, emails, notes from previous schools where Dorsey had worked. Everything led back to the same people. She found a list of schools, all with students who had been mysteriously flagged, and all under Dorsey's supervision at some point. She started matching the student names with current ones at Roosevelt. Her eyes widened. At least 4 of them were still enrolled. And 2 had already been suspended this semester for reasons that didn't make sense. It was a pattern. The same playbook. Push students until they broke, then label them unfit. She knew she had to act fast. She called Mr. Jenkins, and they agreed to meet at the school before sunrise. They needed to confront Dorsey, maybe not directly, but at least set a trap. If they could get him to slip up, admit anything, it could be enough to bring real attention to what was happening. Meanwhile, back at the gym, Marcus looked at Layla. Why me? Why give the file to me? Because you didn't hesitate, she said. You saw someone who needed help and gave up your seat. That told me everything I needed to know. You have a good heart. And people with good hearts don't usually get chosen for things like this, but you were. And now, you've got a choice. You can walk away, pretend none of this is happening, or you can help end it. Marcus didn't respond right away. But inside, he already knew the answer. He didn't want to be part of a system that used kids like him. He didn't want to stay quiet while Tiana, someone who'd done nothing wrong, was targeted. All right, he said. Tell me what to do. Outside, the sky was starting to lighten. Morning was coming. But with it, something darker was rising too. Dorsey was already ahead of them. He knew his secrets were slipping. He could feel the cracks forming in the foundation he'd built for years. He was planning his next move, and he wasn't going down without a fight. In the next 24 hours, everything would come to a head. The files, the surveillance, the names on that list. Marcus, Tiana, Mr. Jenkins, Ms. Ramirez, they were all connected now, caught in a story much bigger than any of them expected. And as the school bell prepared to ring, no one knew what would happen next. But one thing was clear: Roosevelt High would never be the same. The first bell rang at Roosevelt High like a warning siren. Marcus walked through the front doors of the school, feeling like every hallway was watching him. He had barely slept. The folder from Layla was hidden in his backpack, zipped into the lining. He kept hearing her words over and over, "You've got a good heart. That's why they chose you." What did that even mean? He found Mr. Jenkins near the side entrance, just like they planned. Ms. Ramirez was already inside, setting up the classroom with her laptop connected to the projector. The goal was simple: get Dorsey to step into room 104, make him feel comfortable, then catch him slipping, say something, anything, that would expose the truth. The student records, the tracking, the resilience index program. But before they could even move on that plan, everything started to unravel. A security guard approached Marcus and Mr. Jenkins outside the science wing. "Principal Dorsey wants to see you both. Right now." Marcus and Jenkins exchanged a glance. That wasn't part of the plan. They walked together to the main office, where Dorsey stood at the window, sipping coffee like it was just another Monday. But his eyes, they were darker than usual. Cold. Calculating. "Mr. Jenkins." "Marcus," he said, setting the mug down. "We need to talk about the file you've been carrying." Marcus froze. Jenkins stepped forward, trying to shield him. "What file?" Dorsey smirked. "You think I don't know? We track everything here. Every login, every camera, every door code. Layla should have taught you that, Marcus. But I guess she didn't tell you everything." The room went silent. Marcus felt like the ground beneath him had shifted. Layla. She was the one who warned him, the one who said she used to work for the district. Had she lied? Dorsey leaned forward. Did she tell you why she was fired? Or why her own name is on one of those reports? Marcus didn't answer. He couldn't. Dorsey slid a new folder across the desk. "Go ahead. Open it." He did. Inside was a copy of a different file, this one stamped classified. It showed Layla's name, followed by pages of notes detailing her unauthorized access to student records, her mental health evaluations, and a disturbing note that said she had once tried to take her own life after a whistleblower case was thrown out. Jenkins stepped in. "This doesn't change anything. You're deflecting." Dorsey looked at him with a cold grin. "Oh, it changes everything. Because she's not who you think. And Marcus, you've been used. Again." Suddenly, over the school intercom, a loud buzz interrupted the room. Then, Ms. Ramirez's voice came through, but it was panicked. "Everyone please stay in your classrooms. This is a lockdown. I repeat, lockdown protocol. Do not leave your rooms." Dorsey's face twisted. "What the?" He stormed out of the office, and Jenkins followed. Marcus grabbed the new file and ran. Something was wrong. This wasn't part of the plan. Down the hall, students were already panicking. Teachers were pushing desks against doors, blinds were being pulled shut. A lockdown this early in the day? Everyone looked confused and scared. Marcus turned the corner and nearly crashed into Tiana. "I was looking for you," she said breathlessly. "They tried to take Ms. Ramirez." She locked herself in the media room. "What?" She sent out the lockdown. Said someone was coming for the files. "Not just the ones you have, there's more. In the old IT server room. Basement level. She's got backup copies of everything." They didn't have time to think. Alarms started flashing red. Not just a lockdown, but now a breach warning. How could that even be possible? This was a school. Marcus grabbed Tiana's hand. "We have to get to the basement." They ducked under the science wing staircase, finding the access door to the lower levels. Most students didn't even know this part of the building existed. As they descended into the dimly lit corridor, the temperature dropped, and the noise of the chaos above them faded into a heavy silence. They reached the server room. The door was locked, but Tiana had found a keycard on a teacher's desk earlier, just in case. Inside, the room was cold, lit only by blue server lights blinking slowly like a heartbeat. Ms. Ramirez had been here recently. A folder sat on the floor, torn open, files half spilled. Marcus picked up one and froze. It wasn't just students being monitored. Teachers were too. And not just here, several schools, across districts. The reports included names of those who had pushed back against school policies, raised concerns, or filed internal complaints. It was a suppression list. They weren't just testing kids, they were building a system to keep control. And anyone who stepped out of line got erased. Tiana picked up another paper. "Look at this," she whispered. "It's a list of parents. Single mothers, low-income families, some with immigration status flagged. They're not just profiling students. They're using the school to gather data on entire families." Marcus felt the weight of the truth settle on his shoulders. This wasn't just a messed-up experiment. It was a network. A quiet system designed to control, suppress, and erase. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the hall. Someone was coming. Tiana turned off the light. They crouched behind the server racks as a beam of a flashlight cut through the room. It wasn't Dorsey. It was the man from earlier. The one in the suit. The one who'd been in Dorsey's office. He was on the phone. "She's not here. Ramirez must have slipped out. But I'll find the kids. They have the files." Marcus and Tiana held their breath. Then, something unexpected happened. The man turned toward the rack and pulled out a hard drive. "This one has the backups," he said. "Initiate sweep." Marcus's eyes widened. If they lost that drive, everything would be gone. No proof. No record. Just silence. As the man turned to leave, Tiana whispered, "We have to follow him." Marcus looked at her. "You sure?" She nodded. "We've come too far. We can't let them bury this." Above them, the lockdown remained in place. But underground, the real war had started. The lies. The surveillance. The stolen futures. And now, the chase. Everything was building toward one final moment. But the truth, the full truth, was still out of reach. Marcus and Tiana moved silently behind the man in the suit, staying in the shadows of the underground hallway. Every sound felt amplified, the creak of their shoes, the distant buzz of lights overhead, even their breaths. The hard drive he carried swung slightly with each step, hanging by a short cord in his hand. They had one chance to get it back. He turned a corner toward a staircase that led to the side parking lot. A black SUV was already idling there, its engine humming low like a waiting threat. Marcus reached into his backpack and felt for the folder. It was still there, Layla's documents, the names, the files. But the drive. That was the final piece. Suddenly, the man stopped. He turned sharply. "I know you're following me," he said, his voice calm, too calm. "You're not as quiet as you think." Tiana clutched Marcus's arm. The man didn't look afraid. If anything, he looked amused. "You think you've uncovered some great conspiracy? Let me tell you something. What you've found is just a test run. A sample. The real program is bigger than this school. Bigger than any one city. You're late." He stepped forward, and that's when Marcus made his move. He threw the backpack at the man's chest, just enough to knock him off balance. In that split second, Tiana lunged and grabbed the hard drive, then ran. Marcus followed, his heart pounding. Behind them, the man shouted something into his phone, but they didn't stop. They dashed up the stairs, out into the parking lot, across the side field. The school was still in lockdown, but no one had eyes out here. They sprinted to the old gym. It was the only place left to hide. Inside, Layla was waiting. She'd found her way back. "I saw the lockdown," she said breathlessly. "What happened?" Marcus handed her the drive. "We got it. All of it." Layla connected the drive to her laptop, and the screen came alive with data, files, timestamps, audio recordings, even hidden camera footage from school offices. Some showed meetings between Dorsey and district board members, others had emails planning the expansion of the resilience testing program. It was more than anyone had expected. Tiana leaned over, staring at the footage. "We have enough to go public." Layla nodded slowly. "Yes. But once we do, everything changes." Back at the main building, Dorsey had discovered the missing drive. His face was pale now, no longer confident. The man in the suit was gone, the SUV missing. The pressure was on, and it was crushing him. That same evening, Ms. Ramirez and Mr. Jenkins joined Marcus, Tiana, and Layla in the gym. They made copies of the drive, sent everything to trusted journalists, education watchdogs, and even posted a teaser video online with blurred footage, hinting at the massive cover-up. By morning, the news had exploded. The hashtag #RooseveltTruth was trending. Parents were at the gates. Reporters swarmed the sidewalks. The district announced an emergency press conference. And Dorsey, he never showed up to school again. But just as they began to breathe, the twist came. Layla was gone. Marcus found her apartment empty. No signs of struggle, just her laptop wiped clean, drawers open, a single envelope left on the table. It was addressed to him. Inside was a note: "You did what I couldn't. Keep going. They'll try again, just somewhere else. Don't stop watching." And behind the note was a photo. One Marcus had never seen before. It showed a younger Layla, standing in front of a building. But next to her was someone familiar. The man in the suit. Not just a stranger from the district. He had been there from the beginning, with her. Part of her past. Maybe once an ally. Maybe not. Marcus looked at Tiana, heart heavy. The system had cracked, but it hadn't broken. The files were out. The truth exposed. Dorsey was done, but others would step in. The network was deeper than anyone thought. And now, they knew who was watching. But more importantly, they knew how to fight back. The days that followed moved fast, almost too fast for Marcus to keep up. News vans lined up outside Roosevelt High, their bright lights and cameras turning the front lawn into a media circus. Parents demanded answers. Some cried. Some shouted. Others simply stood, stunned, holding tight to their children's hands. The files had confirmed what they feared. Their kids weren't just being educated, they were being watched, categorized, and in some cases, quietly pushed aside. The school board held a press conference. They called the program a pilot study that was never meant to be permanent, trying to distance themselves from the backlash. But it was too late. The recordings leaked from the hard drive. Conversations between board members and outside contractors showed they had full knowledge of what was happening. It wasn't just one school. Several others were involved. Roosevelt was only the beginning. Dorsey was gone. Officially, he resigned for personal reasons, but whispers around the staff room said he'd been escorted out of the district office late that night. Nobody saw him after that. His office had been cleared out, his nameplate taken down. The man in the suit, the one who had followed Layla and tried to retrieve the drive, was never identified by name. The SUV had no plates. No official records. Like he was a ghost in a polished jacket. Tiana and Marcus kept showing up to school, even when they didn't feel like it. The story had made them local heroes, but they didn't do it for attention. They just wanted the truth. And now that it was out, they had to figure out what to do with it. Ms. Ramirez and Mr. Jenkins were still teaching. In fact, they were among the few faculty members the students trusted completely. More teachers came forward after the files went public, sharing their own experiences, times they were pressured to pass failing students, to avoid asking questions, to look the other way when strange policy updates came down. Layla never came back. Marcus tried calling her old number a few times, but it was disconnected. The envelope she left behind became something he kept close, folded neatly in his notebook. Her words still echoed in his head: "Don't stop watching." Weeks passed, and the noise around Roosevelt slowly quieted. The cameras left. Some parents pulled their kids out, but most stayed. There was a sense that things might actually start changing, that people were finally paying attention. The surveillance program was officially shut down, and an independent review was launched. A new principal was assigned, Ms. Shelton, a calm, thoughtful woman with no ties to the district's shadow programs. She brought in counselors, held real listening sessions, and even let Marcus lead a student town hall. At that meeting, something surprising happened. A shy girl in the back, Jasmine, stood up. "I knew something was wrong," she said. "When I failed the resilience test, they stopped calling on me in class. My name wasn't on the list for college prep anymore. They said I was being redirected. I thought it was my fault. But now I know." She looked around the auditorium. "We're not data. We're people." The room went quiet after that. But in that silence, something shifted. Marcus felt it. Everyone did. Back at home, Marcus opened his laptop and created a new folder called Watchlist. Not for tracking people, but for watching out for them. For collecting stories like Jasmine's. For building a record real, human stories that could hold systems accountable. Tiana helped. So did a few other students. They made a simple site where anyone could submit what they'd experienced, anonymous if they wanted. They called it Student Voices. It started small. But soon, stories came in from all over, other schools, other cities. Some were heartbreaking, others hopeful. Some showed how kids had slipped through the cracks. Others showed how they found their way back. What mattered most was that they were finally being heard. Layla's photo remained tacked on Marcus's wall, next to a note, "She was right all along." He didn't know where she went. Maybe she was still running. Maybe she was finally free. But she had lit the fire that exposed the truth, and he'd never forget that. Tiana, meanwhile, had started writing articles for the school newspaper, real journalism, not the soft pieces they used to print. Her story about the Resilience Index was picked up by a national blog. Colleges started noticing. One even invited her to speak at a youth conference. One afternoon, while walking through the front courtyard, Marcus noticed something new. The old camera that used to point at the students' entrance was gone. In its place was a student mural, bright, bold, full of faces. It wasn't just art. It was a statement. A promise. We see you. We hear you. You matter. The janitor, Mr. Jenkins, passed by with his usual cart and gave Marcus a nod. A quiet smile. They didn't need to say anything. They both knew what it took to get here. By the time graduation rolled around, the school felt different. Not perfect, but more honest. More awake. Marcus stood on the stage in his cap and gown, looking out at rows of students, parents, teachers. He remembered where it all began, the bathroom, the cry for help, the moment he chose to listen instead of look away. In the crowd, he spotted Jasmine sitting with her mom. Tiana stood beside him, holding her diploma. Ms. Ramirez clapped proudly from the front row. And somewhere, just maybe, Layla was watching. As the ceremony ended and students tossed their caps into the sky, Marcus felt something shift inside him. Not closure. Not exactly. But a sense of purpose. The system had tried to write their story for them, quietly, carefully, and without permission. But in the end, they took the pen back. They wrote their own ending. And it was only the beginning.